All right, welcome back. This will be my first chunk of lecture notes coming out to you using Screencastify. Now, if you're listening to this, you're likely in Mr. Chaluki's U.S. history class or humanities. Rarely will I send out something that would go to both of those two classes. My main core class of U.S. history, which I have four sections of, and then my one section of the humanities lecture. However, I think for this one, bias and tribalism are things that everybody should be aware of. They're increasingly being talked about in today's society, and I think they're good terms to have in your vocabulary just as a human being living in the world today. And it's both of these concepts are going to totally apply to things that we're going to cover in both of these classes. So for today's notes, I'm kind of double dipping and using this Google Slides presentation for both classes. Rarely will that happen, but I might switch back and forth. And if that confuses you, you hear me talking to U.S. history students or humanities students, I'm addressing both of you for this particular one. Okay, bias is a term that you've probably heard of before. I'd imagine it's not a brand new chunk of vocab. Hopefully everybody's kind of heard it and might have a little bit of an idea what it is. A bias is like having a prejudgment in favor of, or it could be against any certain thing. Bias can apply to really almost anything you can think of. Now, everybody has bias. People like to, and I'll see this on the news, just in conversations with fellow teachers or some of my friends or students. People love to point out other people's bias, and they often will deny their own bias, and they'll say, I'm unbiased. I don't have any bias on this. Well, let me tell you, all human beings have tons and tons of bias on all kinds of different issues. It doesn't necessarily have to be a negative thing either. Now, bias often is used as a negative term, and it definitely can be a negative thing. You can find all sorts of just bales of examples of negative bias or how that's negatively impacted things in society, or maybe even things in your life or decisions that you've seen somebody make or maybe you've made yourself. But please understand that every human being has bias. To say you have bias is essentially saying that you have an opinion on something. You've thought about a particular issue, and it's like just by thinking about it and formulating your own opinion, that is the beginning of bias. Now, some bias can run very, very deep. Other times, maybe you haven't thought about it that much and you just know what your parents have said about it or a teacher or something, and you have a kind of a lower level of bias. But please understand, like, I want you to know key vocab for this. I would want you, no matter which of these classes you're in for me, bias is a key term that, hint, hint, could pop up on a quiz or on an exam question down the road. You would want to have a clear understanding of it. So just that first bullet point of a bias is like a prejudgment, or you could say it's a prejudice where you've judged something like ahead of time, and it could be in favor of a certain event, person, policy, or it could be against it. You'd want to know that. Also, another very key thing is that all human beings have it. Whether they deny it or not, I'm here to tell you, every human being has bias in some way, shape, or form, and really, we all have it on a whole host of issues. Essentially, maybe a simpler way to break that down or to think of it in your head is opinions really kind of equal bias. Now, moving on, there's a lot of different kinds of bias. It might not be a bad idea to jot these down as little like subheadings or sub bullet points if you are taking notes at home or in a desk in your advisory class right now. Confirmation bias. You'll hear this quite a bit being brought up in the news, especially with all the election stuff heating up. A confirmation bias is like you already believe one thing, and you go out and you look for examples. You cherry pick examples, statistics, facts, or other people that are chiming in and saying stuff that agree with an opinion you already hold. Like, for example, If you believe low taxes are a good thing, well, you're going to go out and look for examples, look for data, statistics, other people that agree with you, other places where low tax rates have been in effect, and you're going to sing all of the praises of like low tax rates and how that can make society a better place. You might deny or just overlook other examples where they aren't as glowing and they don't back up this opinion that you already hold. This could apply to immigration. It can apply to racial issues. It can apply to how you think schools should run. If you think face-to-face learning is the way to go, and you don't learn as much in a virtual schooling environment, well, you might go around and look for examples of things that have gone wrong in virtual schools and how students don't stay maybe as busy, or they're not picking up as much, or they could skip things. You could also have confirmation bias in the total opposite way and say, you know what? Virtual schooling is the way to go, and I love it, and it gives me more free time, and I can learn at my own pace. And you could go find all kinds of examples that back up your opinion in that way. Hopefully, I'm not rambling on too much there, but I'm hoping that gives you a clear understanding of what a confirmation bias is. It's just like, I already have this opinion, and I look for other things that will back up and reinforce my opinion. I know a great example today with the election going on. You have Fox News, which is a very conservative, kind of Republican-oriented news organization, and then you have MSNBC on the other side, which is a very liberal, more Democrat-oriented news organization. I know I have people in my family on both sides of the political spectrum, and I can tell you what, my conservative Uncle Scott, he sits around, the only news channel he watches is Fox News. Then I have another cousin who is a hardcore true blue Democrat. He would never be caught dead watching Fox News. He only watches MSNBC or CNN. Both of them are guilty of like confirmation bias there, where they have their own set of political opinions and they just keep watching the channel that reinforces their biases and opinions. So I would encourage you just to be a well-rounded person. I know I try to do this too, and not that I'm trying to push any political views on you one way or the other. I make it a point. I know I have bias as well. Sometimes I change my opinions on things, but I try to be exposed to different ideas. I don't just watch Fox News or just MSNBC. Actually, I don't really watch cable news at all anymore, but I'll get most of my news from podcasts, and I make it a point that I make myself every week listen to a few very conservative podcasts and a few very liberal ones. I want to hear what both sides are saying, and then I try to kind of decode it in my own brain and determine whether what I'm thinking, is this facts, or is it just kind of my own bias, or biases I'm hearing other people talk about play out. Now, an unconscious bias. I'm moving on to the next one here. This is a bias that you hold that you are totally unaware of. I think almost all people have probably quite a few unconscious biases of their own too. This is where, you could find it to tie into what's going on in the world today. Maybe somebody that says, I'm not racist at all. I never have done anything racist in my whole life. But then, they go out and the friends they're hanging out with are telling like racist jokes or doing something that might be racist. And they don't think that they don't see the problem with that you're engaging in an activity or behavior that might not be appropriate. You wouldn't want everybody to know it, but it's like you're unconscious of it. You're oblivious to this own bias that you have playing out in your mind. So both of those key terms, there's other kinds of bias that will hit down the road, but these are the ones that I'd want you to know up front. And as we go through the course, both of these courses, please understand, I try my best in U.S. history and in humanities to lay out both sides of an issue. Often in class, especially when it was face-to-face learning and we would do a lot of class discussions, I would often play devil's advocate. That means like a student is arguing for one thing and I might take the opposite stance. It often would be a stance that I don't even agree with, or some ideas I don't subscribe to, but I'm doing it in the interest of trying to get you to think deeper on an issue. I I am totally aware that I do have biases of my own. Now, I'm a politically pretty moderate person. I don't really consider myself a Republican or a Democrat. I'm one of those like independent voters that kind of swings back and forth from election cycle to election cycle. But please be aware that I'm a human being too, and I absolutely do have bias. And on many issues, I'll tell you what I think, but you have to remember that in my class and in every other class that you take in high school or down the road in college, or people you work with, or a boss you might have, or a coworker, everybody has bias. Just bake that into your brain right now and understand that, people kind of have their own opinions and agenda and things that they'd like to see play out. And even if somebody says, hey, I'm unbiased on this, I don't have any bias, I would always question that, because that's a very natural human thing that we just develop biases just going through our daily life and interacting in society. All right, next up, a fun term that this is kind of a word that's been around a long time, but I think it's kind of almost changed meanings, or it's come more front and center over this last decade. Tribalism. Most of you would probably know what a tribe is. You think back to like thousands of years ago, hunter-gatherer days, or depending on where you live, there are still tribes around the world today where you live in a small group of, generally tribes are like 150 or less people. But the people in your tribe often, like, back in history, would look like you. They probably had the same skin color. They probably had the same eye color. They probably talked the same way. They probably worshiped the same god or gods. Your tribe is like your internet, like the people that are in your kind of inner circle. Now, today, tribalism has morphed. And I think we totally see it playing out, especially every time we have an election coming up. You see tribalism on display in our country and then really around the world, all over the place. Now, it's not as simple as the days of maybe 10,000 years ago where you had a tribe and that was your tribe. You had a family and you were part of this small group and your survival was all linked together. Today, I think we almost have layers of tribes, and there are certain tribes that we will associate with that, to us, it doesn't really look like a tribe at all. We might not even know other people that fit into this tribe with us, but through maybe it's some of our biases or just some of the opinions we hold, we're linked together in a tribalist type fashion. So, tribalism, it's having a certain loyalty or a connection to a certain group. This can pertain to all kinds of things. Like, think of the people, your closest family and friends. Well, yeah, sure, that's your tribe. And that's kind of your tribe in a more like traditional sense. The people you interact with, that you love and care about, the people that are in your inner circle. But expanding out from that and looking at multiple layers of it, like think about the school you're in. I would say all of you that are listening to these lecture notes right now are attending Michigan Center School. That's a layer of our tribe. There's some tribalism to what school you go to. I remember I went to East Jackson from kindergarten through 12th grade. I was part of the East Jackson, the Trojan tribe. And I remember back at that time, I had a lot of school pride, and I was involved in football and wrestling. And I looked right across the railroad tracks in Leone Township to Michigan Center, and I'd kind of scoff at Michigan Center and be like, you know what I mean? That's a different group. And I would look down on them and think how, man, EJ, we're so much better. Now, I flip-flopped, and for the last 15 years, I've been teaching at Michigan Center, and I catch myself doing the exact same thing in the opposite direction, kind of looking down like, oh, man, I can't believe I went there. I'm so much happier over here at Michigan Center. Man, I look a lot better in red. Cardinals are awesome. I hope you kind of get what I'm saying there, and I'm kind of trying to crack some jokes, but your school, if you take pride in that, or whether you take pride in it or not, you're really still kind of interconnected and part of a community here at Michigan Center as a student here today. Now, that can change. You can swap in and out and go to different tribes, just like you go to a different school. But even within Michigan Center schools, you could break down into like tribal subgroups. The drum line would be like a pretty close knit group. I've known a lot of people, a lot of students that have gone through and been very active in the drum line. That's definitely a small little tribe there. If you're in the football team, if you're on the cheerleading team, the wrestling program, on the robotics team, those are all kind of little like sub tribes, excuse me, where you have your own little like sub community and you bond together and have generally take pride in like those are your people and you have a closer relationship with them. You can see it at a much bigger, broader societal level too, like allegiance to a sports team. Maybe you love the Detroit Lions or the Tigers, or maybe it's the Chicago Bears are your team. It doesn't really matter, but you can see like that's totally a tribal thing, having an allegiance to a sports team, or whether it's professional or at the university level. And you can just be walking down the street and it's game day, it's Saturday, and U of M's playing a football game. I guess maybe not this year, but in years past, and you see somebody else with a big golden M on their chest, and you say, "Yo, go blue at them," and that's kind of signaling that, hey, we're part of this same tribe. Even if neither one of you may have ever gone to school there or been on campus, but you have that in common. You kind of tribe up. This applies to how I hear it most often today. The tribalism thing is it's within the scope of kind of the culture war that is playing out in America, where it's political affiliation. And I noticed this absolutely through the Obama years, and it's continued on through the Trump years, where there were people when Obama was president that loved Obama and they thought he could do no wrong. And honestly, like they probably didn't even know a whole lot about his little specific policies and all the ins and outs of what he was doing as president. But they had his back. They're on the same tribe as him. They were team blue. The Democrats are often represented by the color blue. And like if you or somebody else trash talking Obama, man, they'll get fired up and get mad about it. I hope everybody could think of examples too where the opposite is true, where like today with Trump and, you see people out there wearing their MAGA hat, the Make America Great Again and Trump 45. And it's like a lot of times they don't know what he's doing day to day or even what all his specific policies are, but they know that's my guy, Team Red. I've got his back. He's got my back. And you'll see a lot of times people just get into absurd, ridiculous arguments where I've often thought that, if you just grab some Americans that were Republicans and Democrats and you set them down at the same table and you ask them a whole slate of questions on different issues, but yet you didn't attach a Republican or a Democrat to each one. You didn't make it clear, like on an issue like immigration or taxes or law enforcement reform or whatever you want to pick out. Most Americans actually, if they're just sitting down and being rational and you kind of remove that political element from it, most Americans really agree on a whole lot of issues and they can find a ton of common ground. But as soon as you enter the political aspect into it, as soon as you enter that tribalism, man, they rigidly divide up and they feel like they can find no common ground with the other side because you only want to identify with and associate with people that are in your tribe. It can apply to jobs, or you can really find it in all walks of life, how this tribalism plays out. And, I think sometimes this can be a positive thing. Like if you're on the robotics team or the football team, well, there's an example of that's a tribe you're a part of. And it's probably hopefully a positive thing in your life. So tribalism isn't necessarily always a negative thing. You want to have people that you're close to and that you care about, but you can also see a lot of negative examples of tribalism too. And I think, as we're heading into the election, I'll probably spend some more time in the near future talking about that, just how like the tribalism has really divided us as a country and put a big wedge between rural areas and urban areas and the people in the cities and out in the country. And you just have this so much animosity out there where it can also be, a very, very negative thing. And you can see a downside to tribalism too. Humans, this goes back to whether you think we were created by God or whether we evolved. Either way, it's pretty much undisputable that humans were living in small tribes hundreds or thousands of years ago. And it's just kind of the way humans are set up. Our brain works where we want to have groups of people where we have our back. We are a social ape, right? Just like gorillas or chimpanzees or orangutans, they all like to hang out in communities and have their own little group. Well, humans are the same way. We like to have our groups and divide up that way. And anyway, just keep in mind, people are parts of multiple tribes. So, in the journal today, I'm going to want you to list off what are some tribes you're a part of. It could be in a negative light, could be in hopefully a positive light. Hopefully, most of the examples you'll be sharing will be more positive. But that's something I want you to think about a little bit as we move forward. Okay, hopefully you picked up a lot off of this. If you have any questions about bias or tribalism, by all means, shoot me an email, hit me up, and I'll get right back with you.